Israel's survival, security, and stability. So we're sitting at his conference table, 28 members of Congress. You can imagine 28 members of Congress with egos and opinions. It kind of sounds like a synagogue. Every single member of Congress was asking Shlomo Mofaz about suicide bombings. What are you doing about suicide bombings? How do you stop suicide bombings? What kind of intel do you need for suicide bombings? What kind of logistical chain do the suicide bombers need? And finally, Shlomo Mofaz lost his temper, and he slammed his hand down on the conference table, and he said, "Stop asking me about suicide bombings. They are not an existential threat to the survival of the Jewish state." That's what Shlomo Mofaz said, Minister Mofaz. He said, "I grieve over every suicide bombing that takes place. But they don't keep me up at night because we stop 98% of the suicide bombings. They will not end the survival of the Jewish people or the Jewish state." He said, "Here's what keeps me up at night, members of Congress, and here's what should keep you up at night. Iran. For two reasons. Number one, because the regime in Iran, the regime, not the people of Iran, 70% of the population of Iran would feel very comfortable sitting with you here tonight. It is a modern, largely secular, pro-democratic population. But the regime in Iran, different story. So number one, he said the regime in Iran has the willpower to annihilate the state of Israel with nuclear weapons. And number two, the regime is developing the capability, the technical capability of annihilating the state of Israel with nuclear weapons. Thought a lot about that. Back in the United States. And as the rabbi said, I've been working very hard on a bipartisan basis to toughen our response towards Iran. Let me give you my bill of indictment with respect to Iran. Number one, you have a leader of the regime, Ahmadinejad, who has publicly denied that the Holocaust ever occurred. When Ahmadinejad came to the United Nations to speak several years ago, I was the only member of Congress to call for his arrest. On charges of inciting genocide under the International Criminal Code. Publicly called for his arrest. Number two, we have satellite photos, which I can now talk about, which I wasn't allowed to talk about at the time, but they've been declassified, of military parades on the streets of Tehran with Shahab missiles, which have the range to reach Israel, draped with banners that say "Death to the Zionists" and "Death to America." Number three, Iran is actively, on a daily basis, financing and supporting terrorism around the world. Supporting Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hezbollah in Lebanon now has over 50,000 rockets in its stockpile. That's more than the number of rockets they had before the most recent Israeli military operation in southern Lebanon. Now they have more. Where do they get them? Missiles are us from Tehran. Iran has become the Kmart, the Target, the Sam's Club, where you can buy bulk missiles as long as you have a terrorist card. Get in. Hamas, about 10,000 missiles in Hamas's stockpile, all coming from Iran. Syria, right now, Bashar al-Assad is massacring his own people with weapons provided by Iran. Next, Iran's regime is targeting diplomats for assassination. About a year ago, we heard the news that the Saudi diplomat, the Saudi ambassador to Washington, had been targeted for assassination by Iran. And finally, a week ago, we learned the tragic news that Israeli civilians, and Bulgarian civilians were murdered in an explosion at a bus at an airport in Bulgaria. So it is not Iran is a terrorist state. A terrorist state with nuclear weapons just isn't an option, in my opinion. It's just not an option. Now the question is, what do we do about it? There are a few things we can do about it. Some we're doing. and some we need further work on. First thing you do is you talk. You talk. I know a lot of people say we shouldn't even talk to them, we should just bomb them. No, you don't just bomb people. That's not what we're about. You got to talk. Even if you don't believe the talks are going to result in anything, you talk so that you can say you talked. It's very simple. We're not talking for a result. We're talking as a strategy. To be able to say to other countries around the world, like China and Russia, we asked for your military help. You said go talk to them. We talked to them. It didn't work. Now we got to go to other options. So you talk, and we've done that. 3 talks directly with the Iranians and the parties to the talks. No progress. But you got to talk. Number 2, you have to use international diplomacy. We learned from Iraq. I've been to Iraq and Afghanistan 9 times. We learned from Iraq. You don't just go in there and bomb things without getting the rest of the world. As many of your friends as possible. It's just human nature. If you're living on a block and there's a bully on the block, you don't want to be the only person who's defending against the bully. You want to get your neighbors together and say, hey, let's go, let's do something. The world works the same way. So you've got to use diplomacy in order to get partners. China and Russia and India are the 3 problems that we have now. We can delve into that if you'd like in questions and answers. But you've got to exert as much diplomacy as you can to get everybody onto the same platform that you have. Number 3, you have to use covert and clandestine activities. And quite honestly, those are going well. You'll forgive me for not being able to talk expansively about this. But this has been publicized. The Stuxnet virus that ground Iran's computers to a halt. That's covert, clandestine. One of my favorite shows, forgive me, I know it's Tisha B'Av, and I don't want to be overly humorous, but I will say one of my favorite shows on television when I, late like 3 o'clock in the morning after I quit work and I turn on my DVR. I love that show, Deadliest Catch. Anybody ever watch that? It's about the danger of commercial fishing in the Bering Sea. Commercial fishing is the most dangerous profession in the world. Being an Iranian nuclear scientist is the 2nd most dangerous profession in the world. I don't know what it is about somebody so brilliant that they can figure out the science between spinning centrifuges, but their brake lines keep failing them when they get in their cars. I don't know what that's about. So clandestine, covert activities. And that is going as well as can be expected. And I will tell you, the intelligence and military relationship between the United States and Israel to execute those operations is exquisite. And if Ehud Barak were here and if Bibi Netanyahu were here, they would tell you the strategic intelligence and military relationship between the United States and Israel has never been deeper, better, or stronger. That's not me talking. That's Bibi Netanyahu talking. So you do the clandestine and covert activities. And finally, if everything else fails, because I believe that a nuclear Iran is not an option, you have to use a military capability. Now, there are some who say, Israel, man, forget the first 4, just bomb tomorrow. No, you can't do that. We have to talk about that if you want to debate it or discuss it. There are some who say, take the military stuff right off the table, some in my party, and some in the Republican Party who say, Ron Paul, for example, that we shouldn't be militaristic about this. Don't just take the military stuff off and do everything else. No. There are some who say just do sanction 1, 2, and 4. There are some who say just do sanctions 2, 3, and 5. My view is you do them all, and you do them all at the same time. You use all the tools in your toolbox in order to effectuate a change in behavior by the regime in Iran. And those tools have to be calibrated so that the pressure is coming from the top down and the bottom up. Ultimately, what you want to happen, and I'm not sure it will, but what you want to happen is that 70% of the Iranian population that is moderate and modern and feels that the regime is out of touch, you want them to take action. You want them to say, the sanctions are so tough, they're ruining our economy, we can't get jobs, the price of gas is so high, we want a change in our government. Now the sanctions, as part of that toolbox, they're crippling. I mean, no matter who you talk to, they'll tell you, they're crippling, they're biting. Are they changing Ahmadinejad's behavior? No, no. But are they designed to create that bottom-up pressure? Yes. Will it be successful? We don't know. Which is why you got to try everything. Everything always. Second to last point. Here's something that's going very, very well. Israel is the only country in the world, and I mean this, folks, in the world, that has a 360-degree panorama of existential threat. 360-degree panorama of existential threat. Plus, not just potential missile attacks from every direction, but short range, medium range, long range. No other country has that. Now, in the old days, where Israel's military defenders, Shalom Mufaz, would wake up every morning, and Ehud Barak would wake up every morning saying, well, let's see, what do we got here? Look at the map. Hezbollah can attack us with short and medium-range missiles from southern Lebanon. Hamas can attack us with short-range missiles from Gaza. And Iran can attack us with long-range strategic missiles coming up from the south, from the Red Sea, or coming across Jordan from the east. That's a lot of missiles you have to worry about. In a conflagration, in a multi-pronged attack, what would probably happen is Hezbollah sends over a few missiles from southern Lebanon. The Israelis have to respond to that. Meanwhile, Gaza sends over a few missiles on Sderot. Hamas sends over a few short-term missiles from Sderot. Now they got to respond to that. And then you got a bunch of strategic long-range missiles heading towards you. And it's not the missiles that are the challenge, it's the number. Because a bunch of them are decoys. So now Israel has to respond to the missiles coming in from the north, the missiles coming in from the west, and now strategic missiles coming, and there's a bunch of them. And what if there are 8 of them? One happens to have an active armament or a nuclear weapon, and Israel has to figure out which is the one. Because you don't want to take out the decoys and then realize, oh boy, we took out the wrong one. Oh, and by the way, if you know the neighborhood of the Middle East, you know that Israel would have the numbers classified, but it doesn't take very long to get a missile from Tehran to Israel. So Israel would have a very, very, very short period of time to identify those missiles, lock onto them, and try and figure out how to take the right one out and not take out the false decoys. It's anxiety-provoking. If you're in Plainview, imagine what it is if you're in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. Now, there's something different that has started to develop. As I speak to you here tonight at Young Israel, there are U.S. troops sitting in a trailer somewhere